The night before my wedding, I accidentally overheard my maid of honor through the wall. Ruin her dress. Lose the rings. She doesn't deserve him. Then she laughed. I've been working on Nathan for months. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I quietly changed everything. I was sitting on the edge of a king-sized hotel bed at 11:47 p.m., wearing an oversized college sweatshirt and mismatched socks, finishing a plate of room service fruit, when I heard my best friend of 11 years planning to destroy my wedding. Not metaphorically. Literally. Her voice carried through the paper-thin connecting wall between our suites. Calm, relaxed, almost bored. The same voice she'd used for years while ordering coffee or deciding where we should eat. Spill wine on her dress, she said. Lose the rings. Whatever it takes. She doesn't deserve him. I slowly set the strawberry back onto the plate. I didn't gasp. I didn't panic. Something inside me had already realized that whatever happened next would require a clear head. Then Vanessa said the sentence that still echoes in my mind whenever a room becomes too quiet. Men like Nathan don't marry women like Emma unless they're looking for someone safe. I'm just correcting his mistake. Hearing my own name shattered something inside me. Not dramatically. Not all at once. It was like a quiet crack running through 11 years of trust. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there while my heartbeat thudded somewhere in my throat and thought, so this is who she really is. Then I picked up my phone and started recording. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who Vanessa had been to me. We met during our first week of college. She was standing in the dorm hallway arguing with a vending machine that had taken her dollar without giving her the crackers she'd paid for. She spent almost 30 seconds trying to reason with it before turning around and catching me laughing. It owes me, she said. That was all it took. For 11 years, she was part of every important memory I had. Birthday dinners, late-night phone calls, airport pickups. She was the first person I called when my father suffered a heart attack. She sat beside me in the hospital waiting room. 2 years later, she helped me choose the dress I wore to his funeral. At least, that's what I believed. Nathan came into my life 4 years ago. We met at a corporate event neither of us wanted to attend. He was standing near the exit, looking like he was already planning his escape. I recognized the expression because I had the exact same one. We slipped outside onto the fire escape and started talking. First about work, then about family, then about everything else. When someone finally came looking for us, we'd been talking for almost 2 hours. Long before the conversation ended, I already knew I was in trouble. 14 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, he proposed in our kitchen while making breakfast. There wasn't a photographer, no audience, no elaborate surprise. He simply turned around with a ring already in his hand and said, I want to spend forever exactly like this. I said yes before he even finished. Vanessa was the first person I called. She screamed. She cried. She drove nearly 40 minutes just to see the ring in person. Before I'd even asked, she volunteered to be my maid of honor. Over the next 8 months, she threw herself into planning the wedding with incredible energy. At the time, I thought it was love. Love for me. Now I see something different. She wanted to control every decision. The venue, the flowers, the catering, the timeline. She always had an opinion, and somehow every opinion moved the wedding a little farther away from what I wanted and a little closer to what she wanted. I convinced myself she simply had better taste, that she cared, that the uneasy feeling I occasionally had was nothing more than normal pre-wedding nerves. I ignored the way she laughed a little too long at Nathan's jokes, the way she casually touched his arm whenever they talked, the way she always managed to stand beside him in every group photo. Twice, she suggested Nathan and I spend a little time apart before the wedding to make the reunion sweeter. Both times, she offered to keep him company at events I couldn't attend. I noticed all of it, and every single time, I dismissed it because doubting my best friend felt impossible. She'd also insisted on carrying the wedding rings during the ceremony. It's tradition, she'd said. It would mean so much to me. Of course I agreed. Now I knew exactly why she'd wanted them. The second voice through the wall belonged to Kelsey, technically one of my bridesmaids. In reality, Vanessa's friend. She was only part of the wedding because Vanessa had asked. You're evil, Kelsey said with a nervous laugh. Vanessa laughed too. I've been working on him for months. Everything inside me went silent. Not the room, me. Like trust had been playing quietly in the background of my life for 11 years, and someone had suddenly switched it off. What if she finds out? Kelsey asked. Vanessa laughed again. Emma never notices anything until it's too late. That sentence changed everything. Not because it was cruel, because she sounded absolutely certain. She wasn't guessing. She knew. She'd been watching me trust her for years, and she'd built her entire plan around that trust. My hands didn't shake as I opened the voice recorder. That surprised me. I walked barefoot across the carpet until I reached the connecting door. I held my phone against the narrow gap beneath it. For 4 minutes and 17 seconds, I recorded every word: the dress, the rings, Nathan, the months she'd spent trying to get close to him, her backup plans, what she'd do if I became suspicious, what she'd do if anything went wrong, how she'd sabotage the ceremony if ruining my dress failed. Kelsey even asked if stealing the rings was really necessary. Vanessa answered without hesitation, "The rings are the most visible part. If they disappear, everything falls apart." She sounded like she'd rehearsed it, like she'd imagined this moment over and over again. When the recording ended, I sat back down on the bed. I played it once to make sure every word was clear. Then I placed my phone beside the handwritten vows on my nightstand and stared at the ceiling. For a long time. At 12:03 a.m., I called Melissa Delgado. Melissa had been a wedding planner for almost 20 years. She was exactly the kind of woman you wanted handling your wedding. Calm, organized, impossible to rattle. She answered on the second ring. "Emma, what's wrong?" "I need you to listen carefully," I said, "and then I need your help changing everything." I told her the entire story. Then I played the recording. When it ended, there was silence. Finally, she spoke. "Okay." Not, "Oh my God." Not, "I can't believe it." Just, "Okay. Here's what we're going to do." Within 30 minutes, my wedding dress had been moved from my suite to a locked storage room that only Melissa could access. The hotel manager personally helped relocate it. He quietly assigned security to watch the hallway outside my room without making it obvious. At 12:47 a.m., I texted my older brother, Ryan. Ryan worked in corporate security. He wasn't dramatic. He replied with a single sentence after hearing the recording. "I'm on my way. Tell me what you need." I told him. He would keep the real wedding rings. Vanessa would receive an identical ring box filled with 2 inexpensive silver bands Melissa somehow managed to buy from the hotel's gift shop after midnight. The real rings would stay in Ryan's jacket until the exact moment they were needed. At 1:14 a.m., I booked another hotel suite under my cousin Chloe's name. Hair and makeup were moved there. Vanessa would never know where I was getting ready. My phone would stay on silent. Every question she had would go through Melissa instead. Only the information she absolutely needed would reach her. At 1:38 a.m., I went downstairs and spoke with the night manager, Priya. She listened without interrupting. By 6 o'clock that morning, security had a revised access list. 2 names were flagged: Vanessa Carter, Kelsey Brooks. Neither of them would be allowed into my suite, the bridal room, or any restricted wedding areas. There would be no confrontation, no accusations, just polite redirection. Quiet, professional, invisible. At 2:36 a.m., I texted Nathan, "We need to make a few quiet changes tomorrow. Trust me, don't react yet." He replied less than a minute later, "I trust you. Tell me what to do." I stared at those words longer than I expected. Because in that moment, I realized something Vanessa had never understood. She thought Nathan chose me because I was comfortable, predictable, safe. She believed that if she created enough chaos, if she appeared at exactly the right moment, if she became the more exciting option, he would change his mind. She thought she understood what men like Nathan wanted. The truth was, she'd never understood Nathan at all. She didn't know that on our third date, he'd spent 40 minutes helping a stranger change a flat tire in the rain. And afterward, he never even mentioned it again. She didn't know he called his mother every Sunday because he genuinely wanted to, not because he felt obligated. She didn't know that 6 months into our relationship, he'd told me his favorite thing about me wasn't how I looked. It was the way I paid attention to people, the way I noticed things everyone else missed. Vanessa had said, "Emma never notices anything until it's too late." For the first time in 11 years, she was wrong. I texted Nathan one last time, "Keep your phone close. Everything is under control. I love you." His reply came almost instantly. "I love you more than I know how to say. Try to sleep. I'll see you at the altar." I put my phone down, picked up my vows, read them again. I'd written them 3 weeks earlier, edited them twice, finished them the previous Tuesday. For a moment, I wondered if I should rewrite them. Then I realized every word was still true, maybe even truer now. I woke up at 6 that morning after barely 3 hours of sleep. Somehow, it felt like enough. By 7:30, I was sitting in Chloe's hotel suite, wearing a robe and drinking what might have been the best cup of coffee I'd ever tasted. Probably because I'd earned it. The hairstylist chatted happily about a television series she'd been watching. She had absolutely no idea the wedding she'd been hired for had nearly been destroyed overnight. At 9:47 a.m., Vanessa called. I watched my phone light up, then go to voicemail. She called again at 10:02, again at 10:11, again at 10:24, again at 10:39, again at 10:52. 6 missed calls, not a single text. She was smart enough not to put anything in writing. Kelsey finally texted, "Where are you?" "Everyone's here." Melissa answered from the wedding coordination number. "Schedule updated. Please proceed to the venue at 1 p.m. Everything is on schedule." I laughed quietly into my coffee. Chloe looked over the rim of her mug. She'd known everything since 1 o'clock that morning. First, she'd cried. Then she'd gotten furious. Then she'd become terrifyingly efficient. She'd spent years running a nonprofit. Logistics were second nature to her. She smiled. "You know you're handling this almost unnaturally well, right?" "I feel like I'm falling apart inside," I admitted. She shook her head. "You don't look like someone who's falling apart. You look like someone who's already won." I thought about that. Maybe I had. Which is a strange realization to have on your wedding day. My future grandchildren are never going to believe this story. Chloe laughed. At 12:15, we arrived at Harbor Point Chapel. Ironically, Vanessa had been the one who recommended it. It was exactly what I'd always dreamed of. Old stone walls, towering windows overlooking the water, afternoon sunlight pouring through stained glass. Melissa was already waiting with her clipboard. She pulled me aside. "They're here." "When did they arrive?" "About 10 minutes ago." "They tried getting into the bridal suite." I looked at her. "What happened?" "Security redirected them." Quietly. "Vanessa asked to see you." "And?" "I told her you were unavailable." I nodded. Melissa looked directly into my eyes. "Are you prepared if she confronts you before the ceremony?" "Yes." Without another word, she handed me a tiny earpiece. "Ryan has the real rings. So Nathan knows about the decoy. The officiant has been informed. Everything is ready." Then she smiled. "Oh, and one more thing. The ceremony programs were reprinted at 7 this morning." I frowned. She handed me one. Under the wedding party, 2 names were gone. Vanessa Carter, Kelsey Brooks. Instead, one simple line appeared beneath the list. "The bride is surrounded by family and lifelong friends whose love brought her to this day." I walked into the bridal suite. The real dress was waiting for me. Untouched. Exactly where Melissa had hidden it. She zipped it up carefully. Chloe handed me my bouquet. Then my mother walked in. She had driven nearly 3 hours that morning. She knew nothing about what had happened. She looked at me once, covered her mouth with her hand, and whispered, "Oh, Emma." "I know," I smiled. That was the exact moment Vanessa found me. I still don't know how she got in. Maybe she slipped through another entrance. Maybe she'd memorized the building after months of planning the wedding. She was wearing the pale blue bridesmaid dress we'd chosen together. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair was perfect. When she saw me standing there in my wedding dress, something crossed her face, for less than a second. Something real. Almost grief. Then it disappeared. Her expression hardened. She had already decided on her next move. "I need a minute alone with Emma," she said. I looked at my mother and Chloe. "It's okay. Give us a minute." They stepped to the far side of the room, close enough if I needed them, far enough to let us speak. Vanessa walked toward me. Her voice was calm, measured. "You can't do this to me on your wedding day." I looked at her. Really looked at her. For 11 years, I thought I knew every expression on her face. Now, I was seeing the face underneath, the one she'd never shown me before. "I already have," I answered. She frowned. There was a tiny movement around her eyes. She was waiting for me to apologize, to hesitate, to feel guilty. I'd done it hundreds of times before. Just not today. "You planned to ruin my dress. You planned to make my wedding rings disappear. You spent months trying to steal my fiancé." I recorded every word, Vanessa. The color vanished from her face. Instantly. Not slowly. 1 second, she looked perfectly composed. The next, she was white. She didn't speak. Not for several long seconds. Then she said the only thing she had left. "So you're throwing away 11 years of friendship over a man?" I almost smiled. "No. I'm ending a fake friendship because of who you chose to become." She opened her mouth, closed it again. There was nothing she could say. Every excuse required admitting the recording was real. Every defense required me to trust her again. And that trust no longer existed. Her entire plan had depended on one belief, that I was someone she could manipulate, someone who would doubt herself before doubting her. She had underestimated me. I turned toward the mirror, straightened my lipstick. Without looking back, I said, "You should find your seat. The ceremony starts in 12 minutes. My brother Ryan was waiting outside. He offered me his arm. Ryan wasn't emotional. He coached youth basketball. He almost never cried, except during movies about dogs. But when I looked at him, I had to take a slow breath before speaking. "You okay?" he asked. "I've never been better." He smiled. "That's my sister." The music began, the chapel doors opened, and I walked toward the rest of my life. Nathan was waiting at the altar. During the night, I'd worried that everything I'd heard, everything I'd done, everything I'd lost, would somehow steal this moment from me. It didn't. The instant I saw him, everything else disappeared. He looked at me exactly the way he always had, like I was the only person in the room, like coming home. On the left side of the chapel, halfway back, I noticed Vanessa. Perfect posture, perfect makeup, perfect pale blue dress. Next to her sat Kelsey, trying very hard to pretend nothing had happened. Two women dressed for roles they no longer had, watching a wedding they'd failed to destroy. I looked away. The officiant began speaking. When it came time for the rings, Ryan stepped forward, not with the decorative ring box Vanessa had expected, with the real rings. Taken quietly from the inside pocket of his jacket, he handed them directly to the officiant. Across the room, I saw Vanessa tighten her grip on the ceremony program. Her knuckles turned white. She finally understood. The box she'd planned to lose had never mattered. For one brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Not enough to forgive her, just enough to mourn the friend I thought I'd had. 11 years of memories suddenly felt different, as if I were looking through old photographs, trying to decide which smiles had been genuine and which had only been performances. Then Nathan took my hands. Everything else disappeared again. I read the vows I'd written weeks earlier, the same vows I'd almost rewritten that morning. When I finished, Nathan smiled. "I had a speech prepared," he said. "I even practiced it." The guests laughed softly. "So what happened?" "I forgot all of it." More laughter. He looked directly into my eyes. "What I actually want to say is that you're the most observant person I've ever known. You notice people. You truly see them. And somehow, you saw me. You chose me. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice." His voice broke on the last sentence. Later, he admitted he'd had no idea how true those words would become. The officiant smiled. Nathan slipped the ring onto my finger. I placed his ring onto his. Somewhere across the chapel, inside an elegant little box carried by a woman in a pale blue dress, 2 worthless silver bands lay untouched. The officiant smiled. "You may now kiss the bride." Nathan stepped closer. Just before he kissed me, he whispered, "You saved us." I squeezed his hands. We saved us. The reception began exactly as planned. Vanessa and Kelsey were seated at a table near the back of the room, far from the head table, far from the speeches, far from the dance floor. I only learned later that Melissa had quietly moved their place cards that morning. They weren't thrown out. They weren't humiliated. They were simply removed from every moment that mattered. During Ryan's toast, he never mentioned the recording. He never mentioned the night before. He didn't have to. He raised his glass. To Emma, who becomes more herself when life gets harder. And to Nathan, who was smart enough to recognize exactly who she is. Everyone laughed. Everyone applauded. Vanessa and Kelsey left before the cake was served. Melissa quietly leaned toward me later that evening. "They're gone." I simply nodded. Then Chloe grabbed my hand. "The next dance is yours." The band started playing something loud and ridiculous. Nathan pulled me onto the dance floor. For the first time in almost 24 hours, I wasn't thinking about betrayal. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was simply dancing with my husband. Later that night, during the drive back to the hotel, I finally thought about Vanessa again. Only for a moment, and what I felt wasn't anger. It was grief, not for losing her, for losing the person I believed she had been. Nathan noticed my silence immediately. "You okay?" "I think so." "I think I will be." "You want to talk about it?" "Not tonight." "Tonight? I just want this." He reached across the console, took my hand, and never let go for the rest of the drive. "Here's what happened afterward. Not all of it. Some of it is still unfinished. Some of it still exists inside a lawyer's office. A week after the wedding, I met with attorney Patricia Lawson. She listened to the recording, reviewed every message, every timeline, every detail I documented. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "You have grounds to file a civil harassment claim. There may also be interference with contractual relationships." I asked if I should sue. She answered honestly, "That's your decision." For now, I didn't. The recording exists in 3 places: on my phone, in secure cloud storage, and on Patricia's encrypted server. That's where it will stay unless I ever need it again. Vanessa called twice during the week after the wedding. I never answered. Then she sent one final text. "I think you owe me the chance to explain." I read it, locked my phone, went for a long walk. When I came home, I blocked her number. I've never unblocked it. Kelsey sent a much longer message. She apologized, mostly for how uncomfortable everything had become for her. She barely mentioned what they'd actually planned to do. I deleted it. Several mutual friends eventually asked what had happened. I told them the truth. I never shared the recording, not because I wanted to protect Vanessa, because there's a difference between justice and destroying someone's life. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in protecting mine. 7 months later, Nathan and I were standing in our kitchen on a Sunday morning. He was making eggs. I was drinking coffee. It was exactly the future he described the day he proposed. Ordinary, peaceful, real. Our rescue dog, Biscuit, was asleep on the couch. Nathan still got emotional every time she did something adorable. I laughed every single time. That's what Vanessa had tried to steal. Not Nathan, not the wedding. This, the ordinary life, the quiet mornings, the simple happiness no one notices from the outside. She never understood that. She thought she was fighting for a man. She never realized she was trying to take an entire future. In the end, she walked away with an empty ring box, a recording locked inside a lawyer's office, and a phone number that would never answer again. I don't hate her. Hate would mean she still occupied space in my life. She doesn't. Now I simply know exactly who she is, and I never have to learn that lesson again.